What's up, guys? Welcome back to more Entitled People stories. Hope you're all doing awesome today. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and let's get right into today's Reddit posts. How my girlfriend exposed a cheater and helped a friend with her own pregnancy test. My girlfriend and love of my life has a friend. We'll call her Sarah. Sarah's great, kind-hearted, trusting, bubbly. A few months ago, Sarah began dating an arsehole I'll call Mark. Mark isn't great. We hung out as couples a few times, and Mark seemed great on the outside, but my girlfriend had a bad feeling about him. She said he reminded her of a snake charmer, always saying just the right thing, and she didn't trust him. But Sarah seemed happy, so live and let live. Sarah's devotion to Mark seemed to grow intensely and quickly. Then Sarah had a pregnancy scare and things turned dark. My girlfriend is currently pregnant with our first, and I am ecstatic, but terrified. Mark was not ecstatic. His true colors began to emerge, and more than once Sarah spent the night here with my girlfriend in a tub of Ben & Jerry's. It was sad. Apparently, first, Mark didn't believe it was his, then he demanded an abortion. Finally, he fessed up. You probably guessed this already. Mark is married with kids. There's no trucking job that keeps him away for days at a time. Sarah was devastated. She genuinely believed she was in a loving, monogamous relationship. It was a chemical pregnancy, and less than a week later she messaged Mark with the news. For about 2 weeks, Sarah near enough lived with us, which was hard, but not as hard as seeing my girlfriend seethe with rage over what Mark did. My girlfriend, love her, decided that Mark needed to face the consequences of his actions. She took it upon herself to conduct some thorough internet sleuthing, and discovered that Mark had been leading a double life, dating multiple women simultaneously while still married to his unsuspecting wife. Sarah was just one of many, which made my girlfriend even madder. My girlfriend kept digging and managed to find Mark's home address. It wasn't even that hard. The idiot had a Facebook page with his real name, which was really similar to the name he'd been using. If he was calling himself Mark Evans, his real name was Matt Evans. It was comical how badly he'd been covering his tracks. On his Facebook page, he'd sold something and shared his home address publicly. It's been over a month now. Sarah's mostly doing better. In an act of poetic justice, my girlfriend sent one of her own pregnancy tests to Mr. and Mrs. Evans with a note that gave him no way out. Tell her or I will. The only other thing on that note was the number he'd been using when dating Sarah and his Instagram handle. Wouldn't you know it, but my girlfriend had me deliver it through their letterbox after Mark had gone out. I insisted that if she was going to follow through, she wasn't going to get physically close to Mark. This was only a few days ago. Sarah said Mark messaged, saying he made a mistake, and wants to stay with her to work on the relationship. So my guess is he got kicked out. Sarah was thrilled getting to tell him to go f*** himself. Woman refused to be proved wrong. Diamond specialist here. Had this woman come in to get her ring cleaned and polished that was not from my privately owned business. Told her if she wanted it cleaned, I would need to take it in the back to the high-pressure steam cleaner to get all the junk out of it. Lotions, conditioners, makeup, daily wear and tear, blah blah blah. Said she was perfectly fine with that as I told her it could take up a few minutes. I come back out with a brand new looking engagement ring, because it was actually clean. She automatically asks for a jeweler's loupe to inspect her diamond. I graciously hand her one and said no problem. Here starts the thorough inspection of her diamond. Huff and puff multiple times, flip the hair, turn the loop around. There is no difference between sides on a jeweler's loupe. I ask her if she would like me to show her how to use the loupe. She snaps at me and says clearly she knows how to use one. She absolutely did not. Distance from the eye to loop is about 1 inch. Distance from the loop to piece is another inch. Give or take your depth perception. You switched my diamond, she proclaimed. I continue to say, excuse me? She claimed I switched out her diamond, to which I'm baffled at this point, demanding to speak to authority. I said, you're speaking to one. Saying it looks wrong and this wasn't the diamond she purchased, so on and so forth. Tried reasoning with her until I had to get very blunt. I say, I'm assuming you don't know how this works. For me to switch out a diamond, and a marquise shape at that, I would have had to know your exact dimensions of the diamond before you came in here. Your diamond isn't from here, but I said I would clean it for free for you. Now you're accusing me of switching out your diamond within 2 to 3 minutes, when it would have taken me at least 10 minutes to even try and find a stone that had your same exact dimensions. Because if it didn't, I would have had to change the head of your diamond to hold a different size stone, which requires a jeweler's torch, putting on a new one, and then cleaning your ring to perfection to dip into the rhodium. All of that alone would have taken me a solid 45 minutes. Rhodium is $20,000 plus per ounce right now. And if you think I'm going to contaminate a batch of rhodium on your ring to maybe profit $1,000 on switching out your stone is absurd. Kindly take your ring back to where you bought it from to have them confirm with you that indeed, it's still your diamond. And do not ask for me to service your ring ever again. She huffed and puffed and walked out. Got a call later from her husband apologizing, saying that he heard the story and it was her diamond. Educate yourself before you accuse a professional of theft. Am I the a-hole for using a fake test to expose my colorblind brother in front of my friends and family? So I'm a 17-year-old female and I have a brother, 15, who claims he's colorblind. When he was younger, all his paintings and drawings seemed normal. The whole colorblind claim started after he turned 10, all because of a light pink t-shirt he perceived as white. My parents joked about him being colorblind since my uncle, my dad's brother, is. He continued this claim, constantly mentioning it to others, which has always annoyed me because I'm sure he's lying. I've told my parents, but they brush me off, saying I'm just jealous of the attention he gets. Last week was my birthday. I had a gathering at home of about 25 to 30 people on the weekend. The topic of his supposed colorblindness came up again, with everyone asking him to identify colors. I, feeling frustrated, asked him to take an Ishihara test on the TV. He agreed after some hesitation. I went up to my room to grab my computer to plug to the TV, but instead of a genuine test, I used a fake Ishihara test, one that anyone could pass. He pretended not to see some numbers, and once the test concluded, I revealed to everyone that it was a fake test, aiming to show he was lying. The mood turned sour. My brother and parents were furious. My family tried to brush it off, making jokes, and my friends found it amusing. Post-party, my parents were livid. They labeled me as an attention seeker and a jealous a-hole and grounded me for embarrassing my brother. I feel like had he been honest, he wouldn't have been humiliated. Yeah, OP is definitely the attention seeker here, not the one pretending to be colorblind. It's also pretty harsh that they grounded you over this too, especially on your birthday. But to answer your question, OP, no, I don't think you're the a-hole in this situation. In fact, it's pretty amusing what you did. I mean, sure, maybe one could argue that you didn't have to prove him wrong in front of an entire party, but I think it's fair game if he's also using this lie to get attention from the entire party. Entitled Neighbors, from walking into my house to eyeing up my garden. As a side note, this OP is using British English, so when they say garden, they're talking about a yard. Thought my experiences with my new neighbors might fit here. So I first met James and Rose when I heard my doorbell ring. I head downstairs and find them already in my living room. Yep, my girlfriend opened the door and they just waltzed right in like they own the place. Awkwardly said hello while guiding them back out the front door. Thought that was that. Boy was I wrong. James and Rose bought an ex-council house that had been badly damaged by the last tenants. I'm talking busted walls, shattered windows, you name it. House was listed accurately, so none of this was a surprise to them. Strangely, I never had problems with the people who used to rent. Was amazed when they left and I saw the damage they'd done. James and Rose decided I'd be helping them out, and had the audacity to come over with the contract they'd drafted, stating that their builders can use my garden, my bathroom, and that they could use my kitchen whenever they needed, until theirs was installed. Them handing me this contract was the second time I ever interacted with them. I went around and told them it was ludicrous and to shove it. They weren't pleased and slammed the door in my face. Not too long after, I find them stood in my back garden. My girlfriend had been hanging up laundry, and they'd apparently heard her and decided to let themselves through my front yard, around the side of my house, and right up to her. Girlfriend was practically frozen, holding up a pair of her pants while they were just stood there, looking around and smiling. They then suggested, given how unhelpful I'd been with their renovations, that I host a barbecue for them and their friends. What friends, you ask? Beats me. I shut that down quick and told them to never come through to my back garden again. But they weren't done and couldn't leave yet. They had the gall to propose straight after being told to get the hell out, that I give up roughly 1/5 of my garden, so our gardens could be equally sized. I told them in no uncertain terms that they can forget it. Not my problem, they bought a house with a smaller garden. I was seeing red and I think they knew they'd pushed it too far as they scampered away. I guess James and Rose decided that since I wouldn't willingly give them part of my garden, they'd try taking it instead. From my back room, I saw some guy standing at the end of my garden. I went out to ask who he was and how the hell he got there, when in saunters, you guessed it, James and Rose. Turns out James and Rose had torn down our adjoining fence, and this guy was planning where the new one would go. Clearly not having been told that it's my garden, and I absolutely was not on board with this plan. Oh, but wait, they also peeped through my windows and had questions about my belongings. I do kickboxing and have a bob, a life-size training dummy. And did I know that it's scary and should probably be moved away from the window? They didn't want to see it while they were enjoying their newly enlarged garden. I calmly told the man that I was keeping all of my garden and none of them had my permission to be there. I also informed them that if I catch them in my garden again, they're volunteering to be my new Bob. Last I heard, they tried to bully our 70-year-old neighbor into giving up part of his garden. He's got early onset dementia and his 4 or 5 sons visit regularly, but don't live with him. I stay in contact with them as I go around to help my neighbor now and then, or just to chat and keep him company. He's a really cool guy, and hearing him upset about some contract and losing where his shed is, I was fighting to not see red. One text to his sons, and that nonsense was shut down real quick. I never thought I'd meet people this entitled, but here we are. Needless to say, James and Rose have kept their distance since my very explicit warnings, which extend to bothering our dear old neighbor too. My girlfriend is back to hanging up washing outside, but she won't open the door without checking the ring cam first now, just in case it's them. Anyone else dealt with neighbors from hell like this? Entitled Ken felt entitled to my engagement ring. So this happened a few months ago. I was doing my normal monthly grocery shopping at Walmart. I'm in the meat section getting what my family needs and will use for the month. I am terminally ill, so my weight fluctuates a decent bit. My fingers swell and shrink depending on what kind of day I'm having. At this moment, my hands were as small as they'd ever get. While putting a roast in my cart, my ring slips off and clangs its way through the bottom of the cart and onto the floor, where it bounced a couple of feet. Cue Entitled Ken. This man looks me directly in my eyes, picks it up and puts it in his pocket. I was shell-shocked and froze. I mumbled a quiet thanks and can I have my ring back? He makes no move to give my ring back until an employee makes it known that she has seen the whole fiasco happen, and would be calling the cops if he didn't hand it over. He mumbled something akin to, "I found it on the ground, it's mine." He immediately handed it to me despite his protests. Like, what in the legitimate hell made him decide that he could just take my ring? Alright guys, that is it for today's episode. Thank you for watching, I appreciate it. Leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe for more. So have an awesome day and I'll see you next time.